Today's episode, I get to introduce you to one of my favorite human beings, Mahoney, the prepared performer. I couldn't think of anyone better to be my inaugural episode. She speaks on the biggest marketing stages in the world and has helped thousands get on camera comfortably so they can sell their business and market it in the most authentic way. Most people today know her as a former musical theater actress turned brilliant marketer and business coach. I want to bring you another side of the story as she shares her journey to being truly in her purpose, how she makes really tough decisions, why turning down big opportunities is actually a really great thing when you're in alignment, and how to be your most truly authentic self. And now my interview with Mahoney, the prepared performer.
Hey everyone, I am so excited to have you guys here on the Inspired Focus podcast with one of my first guests that I get to record with, and I couldn't be more honored to have her as one of my first guests because she has been such an incredible influence in my life and has meant so much to me in actually getting into true alignment and purpose for me. Mahoney has been one of my closest friends in business for the last 3 years about. She has such an incredible story of multiple times making tough decisions that get her closer to alignment and her true purpose. And I can't wait for you to hear some of her story. I think one of the things that always blows me away, and you can just tell by her vibrant, energetic personality, is the fact that she was a Broadway star, basically. She was on a first national tour of Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, which is so cool. She's one of my only actress friends, so that's pretty neat to say. She started her business in 2013, had a lot of changes, ups and downs, and roller coasters, which most entrepreneurs have experienced. And in 2016, she really started to find a true path and has now built a multi-7-figure business that is impacting lives all over the world and has a vision that is so big and incredible. And we're going to talk all about that today. Molly, welcome to the show.
I'm so honored and grateful. So we're going to have the best time.
Yeah. So Molly, one of the things that has always blown me away is your ability to be so incredibly resilient in the face of crazy things that happen and decisions to be made and failures. Yeah. And one of the things that I find,
it's become such a game, and I don't want to like fully celebrate it because that means I'm like saying that I want more crazy, but it's been fun.
Yeah. One of the stories that I heard from you so early on was about a major failure. I think that was in 2016, where,
yes.
But that failure got you on your path today, which has literally impacted, I would venture to say, multiple hundreds of thousands of lives because so many people watch your videos. You've directly impacted so many people. Tell us about that decision that happened, and maybe even going back to the decision to leave Broadway, doing the acting and moving into a space that was...
That's actually a good point. Yeah, that's a good point to think about, which I don't talk about very often, is how when I was on tour with Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, which is always so funny to say, right? But it was true and it was really awesome and real. We had a flying car and it was magical every night. And I never got tired of hearing that song, which you'd think that you would, but it made me happy every night. And while we were on tour, I got engaged to my amazing husband, who I had brought on as I'd somehow worked my magic to get him in as the person in charge of the kids backstage on tour. Did I ever tell you that?
No, that's amazing. Oh my God, I'm not surprised. And of course, he's been like such an incredible partner for you. Like, of course, that's what would happen.
Yeah. So one of the things I was so looking forward to on this session with you today is, if you don't know Jamie, she's just one of the most amazing humans on the planet. And it's been such an honor to have been, had you as a good friend in my life. I mean, we've gone through so many different adventures of our relationship together as well. So like, I've hired Jamie to run our Facebook ads at one point. She's been in our glam program for a long time. Then I hired her as our mindset coach for the glam program. So we've been on this awesome adventure. And if you're listening to this podcast, you're so lucky to have Jamie in your life because she's just so amazing and powerful. So
Thank you.
Thank you for all that you bring to the world.
Yes.
And I knew there would be things that came up today that we had never actually spoken about. So I thought that'd be so fun. So
Yeah.
yeah, I really was trying to get, I was trying to get my husband in as the bass player on our show because that's actually what he was doing professionally. But the bass player needed to play tuba, which he didn't do. And so if you're not familiar with the way like orchestras work, oftentimes the bass player will also play tuba, which is the weirdest thing ever. But he didn't do that. So instead, they were like, we need someone to be in charge of the kids backstage, which is called the child wrangler, not to be confused with the child catcher, which is the character in the show. So he was on tour with us. And when we were in Chicago, we got engaged and it was awesome. And we knew we wanted to get married and we knew we wanted to have kids. Our apartment in New York was a 400 square foot apartment that I loved. And I also knew that was, yeah, exactly. And I knew that was not going to be possible, like from the way we wanted to raise a family. So I had this really powerful discussion with the woman who was playing the Baroness on the tour. And she would actually be a really good person for you to interview for this podcast, which is so random, but she still is such a huge influence in my life. And I was just talking to her about this recently. Her name's Elizabeth Ward Land. And she's someone who has multiple Broadway credits. She's just like such an amazing human and has this bananas career. And I remember sitting on the floor in her dressing room because she had her own beautiful big dressing room. And I was sitting on the floor and she was also obsessed with crocheting, or knitting actually, just like I was. So she and I would have our little like knitting and crocheting sessions in her dressing room. And I came to her with this question, which was, I feel like there may be something more. And I hadn't set up my whole life to like be this Broadway performer, but I knew my whole life that I wanted to perform, right? And I hadn't actually, as we were just talking about, I hadn't actually booked a quote unquote Broadway show, right? But I had done so much and I had worked professionally as a singer, as a dancer, all over the world, literally on cruise ships in Vegas, all this kind of stuff. And there was part of me, which ties in so well to what's happening on the internet right now. There was part of me that was is it going to look like to everyone else that I've like given up or that I'm selling out and that I'm not like getting the accolades that I could be getting by booking a Broadway show? And in talking to Liz, it was such a powerful conversation because she was like, you have so many other skills that could be capitalized on, that you could be using, that you could be sharing with the world. And whether it was like getting a crochet pattern published in Crochet Today, which was a really big deal to me, or these other things, I didn't know what it was going to be. I mean, I had this entire other vision of launching. I had a business called Molly Made Me that was a handmade crochet accessory business.
love that you have these other businesses that like we've never talked about. So great. I mean, me too. There's the scrunchies and I can't even remember all of the different things, but
Totally. No, your other thing. There's a million, but there's like other, I know, but like, so like you have had some really random things that whenever I hear them, I'm like, wait, are you for reals?
Grocery delivery company.
What was it? Was it scrunchies?
Scrunchies. Yeah. I sold scrunchies in the fourth grade to my friends. Like I would like take their lunch money for scrunchies. Yeah.
Okay. So that's basically what I was doing.
Perfect.
And I love it. And she was like, you know what? There's more to life than what we feel we've built up in this little niche as being like the end all of success. And I think that happens for a lot of us, especially with the way that social media is now. And we actually just made a huge internal decision on Monday that we're letting go of tracking results on Instagram.
Whoa.
Full stop. I haven't told anyone aside from Kendra and Liz, but we try to do all these things that are like following the rules on what people want you to do on Instagram. And what we've realized is out of everything we've done on Instagram, and we have like 20,000 followers and we have videos that reach whatever. Our video reached like 40 million. Guess how many sales we've had come directly from, like, if you were going to guess, what would you say?
You have so many sales that I'm like 10. I'm going like way low.
Okay, and I realized we actually did have some sales. I realized yesterday we did actually have some sales, but the transaction came through Instagram because when I spoke on stage, I sent them to Instagram to go to a link, but I'm not going to count those. I mean, just like straight up that we brought in through Instagram, zero, like actually zero that I can actually track to Instagram.
Oh my God.
Yeah, actually zero. And
Wow.
so I was like, what? Okay. But here's something that's super interesting about it. And just to go on a total tangent for a moment and like where the alignment piece comes in, we have some ads going on Facebook right now, which we hadn't done in a while, that are going to like a webinar basically. And the one audience that's performing the best in bringing those leads in for this webinar is actually retargeting our Instagram engagement. And so
Interesting.
what I realized was super interesting, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so what I realized is I'm going to stop trying to fit into every influencer mold on Instagram, which gives me all kinds of anxiety. I feel crappy about myself. It's like part of the reason that the short form thing has been such a struggle. I mean, I'm much better at it now, but it had been such a struggle with me. Like I post on TikTok and people write a-hole comments like all the time. And I'm like, why am I trying to do these things when obviously things are working really well for us on other platforms? So as of this week, we're going back to just like shit. We're going to do some things obviously on Instagram still, but most of it is going to be just me having fun and like dancing or, not dancing like TikTok dances, but like me actually dancing because I'm a dancer. And then, and like sharing little bits of information, but not being so heavily concerned about the metrics that we're not even going to track it anymore.
I love that for so many reasons. Because one, what you're really speaking to is intuition in reality. You're speaking to following what feels really right and really aligned and good for you as a person, good for your company, rather than what everyone else tells us to do, which is usually what gets us super hung up.
And the thing that's dangerous about that, which I'd love to really get into this at some point if you're open to it, but the thing that's super dangerous about that is that we can confuse our intuition with just straight up general fear because it's out of our comfort zone or because it's like a little scary. So like if you go back to your original question, which I totally did not answer, which is like in 2016 or even leaving the Broadway life, it was scary, right? But I knew there was a pull. But here's the thing, when I really look at that, the thing that I was most afraid of is what other people were going to think.
Yeah.
Not about my own life. And would I be living in some sort of regret?
Yeah.
No,
I mean, that
yeah.
is so often what it is. It is so often the fear, the shame around what other people are going to think rather than full actual desire. So one thing I love that I think I do a lot of work with my clients on is actually figuring out what is intuition and what is a full-bodied yes versus like making a decision out of fear or ego or something else. So when you think back to those pivotal moments where you made a decision that was really scary, what did it feel like inside for you? What was like this is the thing that I can do and I can walk through the fear?
I think that there's actually a lot of right up until the point where you make the decision, it feels like, oh my God, like I once jumped off of a bridge and a lake in Oregon. And I was so scared about jumping off the bridge. But when I was getting ready to make the jump, it was right before I moved to New York, which was the best decision ever. And as I jumped off, I said, go to New York. And then when I got into the air, like that feeling, like there's like some sort of sense of freedom, right? And if I had just allowed myself to be like a straight arrow and go straight into the water and like be this freedom place. But instead, as soon as I jumped off the bridge, I went, freaked out. My legs spread and I ended up like really hurting my tailbone when I hit the water. I think what you need to do is once you make that decision, like there's this sense of like a whoosh, right? Like it's almost like a freedom or a slide into the like puzzle piece fitting into place. But you have to get through that first moment of like, oh my God, what I'm doing, and this feels really awkward and horrible. And then there's this whoosh feeling.
I describe it as expansive. Yeah. I describe it as expansive. Like when you're making a decision where it is like right from an intuitive, aligned place, it feels like all of the things open up for you versus when you're making a decision that's
Yeah.
out of fear-based. So if you had not taken the leap to move back to California or not taken the leap to go to California or to go to New York, you would have felt something that felt like contraction, that felt like a little
Yeah.
constricting. And that to me is where it starts. But you kind of have to go back to those moments and say, oh, yeah, that's what that feeling was. Of it's so scary, but man, I know it's right.
And there's going to be tension that happens right before it, right? So like I was telling you that I was just on a call recently with a really awesome opportunity that I was given to say yes to this really awesome thing. And we'll talk about it later. But the decision of saying yes or no to this thing was one of those things. And as I was in the point of the tension where you're getting ready to actually make the decision, I knew that if I said no to this thing, it was actually going to allow that sense of like growth, like expansion, right? That there's an up leveling there.
Yeah. Let's talk about the
Okay.
thing, because I think
Cool.
it's such an amazing example of this that you told me about before.
Yeah.
And it's such a beautiful example of making a decision that on paper, everyone around you is going to be like, are you out of your mind? But you know, this is the decision that is in alignment for you. You're saying no to the glitz and the glamour and the thing that's like, heady and exciting because you are so grounded in your vision. And that is amazing. So let's talk about it.
Yeah. And it takes like muscles to get to the point where you maybe say, you make the wrong choice a couple of times to realize like,
Yeah.
oh, I've been down this path before. Right. So back in 2016, when I was teaching performers how to have a business, I had a huge course launch failure, just flat out. I'll just get us caught up to now. Huge course launch failure that did not work at all. And Facebook Live had just come out, and I was expecting, we spent all this money on Facebook ads, which is horrible. Facebook Live had just come out, and I was like, oh, what if I flip flop? There was a whole process that went into this. But what if instead of teaching performers how to have a business, I teach business owners how to perform? I made that decision. I had that expansive feeling thing happen. And within 3 months, we brought in $50,000 in sales. It was awesome.
I'm so grateful you made that decision because I wouldn't be in your world if you hadn't made that decision.
Oh my gosh. Me too. And that huge failure has served as such a great reminder so that when things go wrong in the future, I can be like, here's the possibility, right? And we have a whole system around that so that you get more comfortable with it because it's always a good thing. So through the years, we've had all these awesome, growth opportunities and all this. And in 2020, I decided to finally, and I really had resisted this for a long time, but I finally decided I was going to take the time to write out my entire quote unquote vision of like what I would love in this world. And I always love to shout out Felicia Searcy, who really taught me the most powerful question we can ask, which is, what would you love? And Jamie, have you ever noticed when you ask your clients that oftentimes they don't know how to answer it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. I think it speaks to a lot of the stuff I work on with them, which is because we're so often so disconnected from that. And we're so disconnected to what actual alignment is because we're so inundated with all of this stuff out in the world and what everyone else tells us is important that sometime, I think very early in life, we stopped checking in with what we actually love.
Yeah, or we were told that what we would love was not right, or that it was wrong, or that it was going to hurt someone else.
Yep.
And that's really the thing that Felicia taught me the most is that when we do what we would love, it's actually what is best. As long as it's coming from a pure place, it's actually what's best for others as well, which is a tricky thing to get our minds around. So that making that decision to write that vision in 2020, and then rather than just writing it like personally, I actually posted it online. So that decision, posting that online led to so many cool things. And one of the things that I had written on that it was a big post actually that I did. One of the things that I wrote there was that I wanted to launch a program in schools. And this is something that I've wanted to do for a long time. I taught kids for years. It's always something that's been important to me. And I made it publicly known that I wanted to have a program that basically was like, either an after school program or an assembly program that came to schools and taught them how to be more confident, taught them how to communicate, taught them how to be more creative, and taught them how to have empathy. So I want to have a center for elevating your empathy. And to some people, it's like, oh, that sounds cool. But then when they see that we're really teaching video and marketing strategies, they're not necessarily sure how those things combine. So cut to, I've known that this is something I want to do. So one other thing that I wanted to do in that post was write a children's book, which now we've written this children's book. It is super awesome. I have it right here in my hand. It is glorious and amazing.
Yes, we're going to talk about it.
So many cool things have come from that. Yeah. So many cool things have come from that. And this summer, just a couple of months ago, one of my friends who is the director of integrated arts at the Orange County High School of the Arts, which is like where Matthew Morrison went and a bunch of other fancy people. She and we were hanging out in my backyard or something. And she said, I have a random question, but we're launching a new program. And I'm wondering, do you know anyone who would be interested in teaching a marketing class at the school? And I was like, what? And I said, I would. Now, if we don't know each other, because you're just listening to this podcast and hearing who I am for the first time, I am like way overcommitted. Just like if you saw my calendar, you would think, who is this crazy lady? So even like Jamie, I told Shamika and she was like, wait, what? So when most people hear that I said I would be interested in teaching a marketing class for sophomores, they're like, how are you going to do that? Because I'm traveling so much and all of this. So I said, I'm totally interested in more information. And she was like, what? So she got it down to 1 day a week and said, if there's times where I have events or whatever, and I need to miss it, I can figure it out. The only thing is I have to get credentials. I have to do all these, there's so much prep work that had to go into it. Put together a full curriculum for the year, all of this stuff. So it's starting in 2 weeks. I am very excited and a little scared. And really, as we were just saying, what this is going to do is lay the groundwork for my bigger vision. So it's going to be a little restricting time-wise for a little bit, but I know that it's really tied to something that means so much more.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, the point of this story is earlier today, I had a call with, and I don't know if we want to talk about people, but I had a call with someone who is married to someone that is like a really big influencer online and in the health space and all of this. And they're having an event where they're having the Joe Dispenza speak at this event, amongst other speakers. And they're looking for other people to speak at the event. And one of my clients connected me with this person so that I could have this conversation about potentially speaking. And I said to Liz, I was like, are you kidding me? First of all, just any chance to be able to be in a room with Joe Dispenza, to be able to see him on stage, because he doesn't do that all that much anymore.
No.
Is so Liz goes, and Marie Forleo was speaking there too. So it was like a big deal.
The association with is huge, 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 huge. Yeah.
Right. So to be able to be there, but then also from a business standpoint, to be able to talk about it, that I'm, it's like a proximity type. So the call was so great. And I was hoping it was something where I would just come in for 1 day, but it really was something where I would have to be there the whole time. And at the end of the conversation, I said, okay, this just sounds so amazing. And there's 3 things that are potentially a problem. And so I said, on Sunday, I have this event planned with my husband. So it's a business event, but it's not even about the business. It's about my marriage. So that came first as my reason for saying, I'm not sure. Then it was also we have this other family thing happening on Saturday, which would be really hard to miss. Then, so I'm going through the list of the alignment stuff, right? Then I would have to miss a class at the high school. And I said to him, I was like, I know this might seem so silly, but I've really made this commitment that I'm going to give back to our community. The money at the high school is not anything that's going to compare to what I would be able to do at an event like this. And I said, but I've made this commitment to help young people who have no idea of possibility. And they're so sucked into this crazy world of social media. And I said, and I can't imagine that you're ever going to have Joe Dispenza back on your stage if we do this on another time, but I think I'm going to have to say no. And I just left it at that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was like, but I feel good about it.
Yeah. You have that feeling deep in your soul that this is the right decision because you're so grounded in this really big vision you have. And I know you and I have talked about this before. I mean, we're all human and we're all susceptible to the desire for the accolades, the acknowledgments, the things that that would mean And it's really easy. This actually goes back to those earlier decisions, knowing the difference between intuition and alignment and something else. I know even today I would be definitely sucked into making it work, which you talked about earlier to me before we got on the show, and then being so stressed out and so exhausted and actually falling out of alignment even further.
Well, and the trickle down effect, because he was like, you know, could you have someone from he's like, and he was so great about it, but he said, like, could someone from your team come out and be here to be able to, you know, whatever, network and talk to people. And then I was like, that's going to stress my team out too. So no,
No.
thank you.
No.
And I know there's a spot in, you know, my favorite Gay Hendrick, in The Big Leap where he talks about this. And then he gave like a really great example of an email response that's like, I'm super focused on the things that are in my genius zone right now. We have a really clear plan and I can't say yes to this opportunity right now, but thank you and let me know in the future. Full stop, which seems like such a hard thing to do, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's cool.
Especially when you're driven and have been driven your whole life.
And I do think there are times, I don't regret all the times when I said yes and it was stressful.
Yeah.
So, you know, like there's times where you definitely do need to put in that extra hustle and you need to, I mean, it's going to be a hustle at the high school too, that's for sure.
It's just a different hustle. I mean,
but it's going to be different.
The reality is, in the vision you have, you're not the one teaching forever, but you're getting this opportunity to understand what's needed. How can you build something if you don't know what's truly needed? And what an incredible opportunity to take a step forward into that. And so I think I remember you saying, because I want to bring it back to this incredible book that was the first step in getting towards this vision that is so amazing.
And it's led to so many cool opportunities. Like I even spoke to a team at Amazon of leaders who set culture for their offices. Like I ran a session for the Spaces team at Amazon because of this book.
So for those of you who are listening
kids.
and not watching, Molly's holding up so you can go check it out on YouTube, but it's called Finding My Awesome. And it's written as a children's book, but you're actually being able to bring it into even more spaces, which is so cool.
Yeah. So actually, and this is something that Todd Herman has told me has happened with his children's book as well. And the co-author, Evie, is the same person who co-authored Todd Herman's book, My Super Me, I think is what his is called. And what we did, and Evie does this so brilliantly, and it's because I have goosebumps everywhere. It's because I wrote that vision post that our friend Marilyn inspired me to write. And then my friend Deborah saw that I wrote that post and was like, oh, I could connect you to someone. I have a friend who does this. Turns out the person she connected me to was the same person who had helped Todd with his book. And I had that book in my house, but I never thought about reaching out to her, or it seemed like something that was like further away. So what Evie does is she helps pull the material that you've already created as a business owner and then put it into a children's book. So we were able to take this concept that I have called the quesadilla of awesome, and the confidence building piece that we focus on in our programs is often something that I fear that some people think is silly and that it doesn't. It's funny because people don't actually say that to me. I just get, I sometimes think it is. But what's the real silly thing here is that by putting it into a children's book, more serious humans have actually taken it seriously because they're reading it to their kids. So it gives them permission to be able to take the information in themselves. So it's like this awesome Trojan horse of magic when they open it up and they read that they're going to go on a quest of awesome to find the things that make them uniquely them. It comes back and it affects the adults as well.
I have to say that it was one of the things, your quesadilla of awesome was one of the things that I loved in your programs. I felt like made it so different than so many of the marketing programs out there because it really spoke to the depths of who you are and what makes you different. And the idea that, at the time I had my Facebook ads agency, which is now a marketing consultancy. And, there's a billion Facebook ads agencies out there, but how are people going to connect to you and choose you? Because something about you and the way that you do business and the way that you behave in the world and interact with the world is different than literally anyone else. And it's such an important piece that a lot of people miss in business, which puts them into scarcity because there are a million other people doing what they do.
Because actually there are, just so you know.
Yeah, because there
I
are.
mean, it's a legitimate, I'm just going to say it's a legitimate fear. And the only way to combat that fear is just like you just said. I don't know if you've seen Kung Fu Panda 3, but Po in Kung Fu Panda 3 is the dragon warrior. And he's trying to teach the other pandas to become ninjas. And it's not working because he's like the guru marketer out there who's like, you got to follow my exact plan. Rather than what he realizes is one of the pandas starts just rolling down the hill, having an awesome time, and knocks out a bunch of other animals on the bottom of the hill. And the virtual camera, because it's a cartoon, in case you didn't know, the camera comes into his face and it's like, I don't need to teach you to be more like me.
Mm.
I need to teach you to be more like you.
So good. It's so good.
Right? Oh my God. And I saw it in the theater and I was like crying and Frankie's looking up at me like, Mom, what is your problem? I'm like, this is the point of life. Like, this is all it's about. But it's scary. So,
oh my gosh.
Awesome. I know.
I love it. And now look at you, Kung Fu Panda, coming in here with your amazing book, Trojan Horsing, into people's lives to help the parents find that they're awesome as they're reading it to their children who need it, which, I mean, this is going to go off topic for a second, but you and I have kind of talked about this before. Becoming a parent has actually been the thing because I want to teach my kids how to be like the amazing humans that they are and not be so inundated by everything else that we didn't get those tools. Our parents didn't have those tools. Like, I want them to have the tools. And so now I'm learning all of these parenting techniques that I'm then using to like reparent myself, which is great. So your book is one to add to the repertoire.
And people like you and I and the people who are listening to this podcast, like, we're at least already building something, know that we have some sort of goal. And so we at some point recognize that, like self-help or whatever you call it, awareness is a key to actually hitting some level of success. What I really feel at a deeper level, and this like makes me cry, which is a sign that things are, on track, is that this book, like right now, it's really cool. And I get to share it with my friends and I get to share it with our clients and our community. And I know that those strategies that we're putting into these books, because Evie and I have more books coming out together, these are things that once I get this school program up and going, like this is my way of combating school shootings, is that we're actually going to help the kids, the humans, the adults to be able to be kind to each other, to understand they have other ways to process their feelings.
Yeah.
And I know I can't go do anything. Like if I start getting into some sort of political, I'm going to shut down. But for me, using a Trojan horse through the pages of a children's book, I firmly believe it's something that's going to make an impact on one decision that somebody makes that affects so many people.
I mean, it is for sure. I just know it knowing you, but also knowing the courage it takes to take the step into the things that feel deeply aligned is so huge. And you can see the ripple effect that happens when you make the choice to do it. You made the choice to step into really allowing yourself to have the big vision, which really so many of us don't even allow ourselves to take the guardrails off, like really take the guardrails off and say, how big could this get?
And to see that there's people everywhere who are doing cool things like this, but like, I mean, Olivia Newton-John passed away, which she was so young. And it makes me so sad. And I know 70, whatever she was, may not seem that young, but I think it was super young. And I saw Sarah Blakely did a post that Elizabeth sent to me that was like Sarah Blakely as Sandy in Grease when she was in high school, which I played Sandy also. I probably should have played Rizzo, but I played Sandy in high school also. So like she went from that to then buying the actual Pink Lady's costume that was Olivia Newton-John's, like at a fundraiser or something. And then it showed a video of her with Olivia Newton-John. And if you think about it with like Spanx and like the Spanx most of us would have to wear those black pants, like all of that. And it's seeing Sarah Blakely's like full journey of what's possible. Yeah. Like there are regular human beings who make things happen.
Yep.
So why not you?
Yeah. And allowing yourself to really step into that, to really do it. And I like to backtrack back to the post you made. I mean, you just made the decision to really see it and to own it and own it publicly. And look at all of the like cascading effects that happened so much faster than you ever imagined. I mean, I remember you putting
Yeah.
that post up and then bringing it to Glam, which is your high level program, which I was in at the time. And I was like, this is amazing. Just you walking through how you got to your own vision and helping us to step into that. It was the first time that I had started letting off the guardrails. I would actually give it credit for me stepping more fully into doing this work, which is so incredible because it allowed me to say, I have something big to offer the world. And that's something I've always kind of had inside me, like, oh, there's something bigger. There's something bigger. But actually really say, how big could it get? And it's so amazing to watch the ripple effects of you really owning that. It's beautiful.
Well, and then thank you. And props to you also for sitting in those moments where you're like, which both of us have done, right? It's like, there's something, but I don't know. And even on our own, like when you write something like that it's like there's something that comes in that feels maybe gripping, that feels a little in that moment to even admit it to yourself, right? But you've got to be brave enough to really even put the pen to the paper.
Yeah. I love it. I love it.
Do you know?
So beautiful.
Do you know? Do you know David Wilcox? I can't remember if we've talked about him before. He's like my favorite singer-songwriter.
We have chatted about it before, but
okay. This David Wilcox. I'm trying to think of what songs. I think he may have actually written. This is so random, but I think he may have written "I'm Not Missing You." You know that song?
yeah.
It's like I don't know, some 80s, 90s song. Anyway, most of his songs are actually very story based, and there's like all kinds of. I mean, they've changed my life. And randomly, one of the only people I know on the planet who really listens to him is Elizabeth Ward Land, who was the Baroness. So that was also a super strange, magical connection that she and I had. Anyway, I was able to take, because of 2020 and everything that happened during that time, I was able to take a songwriting workshop with him because he actually did things online, which he doesn't usually do. And it was so awesome. And my cheeks are still hurting now because I smiled for 2 weeks straight. And in this, he talked about, like, he's so good with metaphor and story. And he talked about this thing that he calls the click. And the click is the sound that you hear when you make the decision. So he talks about like going to the gym. And once you get to the gym, it's fine, right? But there's the sound when you like open the door, you shut the car, you take the seatbelt, and that click of the seatbelt going in before you actually turn the car on and you make that decision to go. That's like what it is when you put your pen to the paper and you give yourself the space to allow for more possibility.
Yes. I love that. I love it. Okay. So there's one more story I want to hit on because it just speaks so much to actually making decisions that other people probably think are crazy, but then work out so beautifully. Before we get into a couple of rapid fire questions. So before we got on, you were telling me about some decisions you made in July for your business, well, probably June into July, that created some massive change for you that were completely off book, if you will, from what marketing people would tell you to do. So let's talk about.
Yeah, completely like the actual opposite. Yeah. So we have, we plan out our calendar for the whole year because we're like smart business people. So we've had this, and the way that our kind of cadence goes is one-ish opportunity a month. So there's like a webinar, a masterclass, and then every few months, usually twice a year, we do a bigger launch, like a 5-day challenge, something like that. No, I'm not doing big cray partner launches, but it's like a bigger deal where I'm live for 5 days. We really do ads. We fill the whole thing. And it usually generates a couple $100,000, maybe like over $100,000. And it's fun. And the biggest thing is that it inspires like momentum for the next several months. So we were getting ready to do this one in July, and we've done this before. We have the templates are all written out. It's like the same basic thing. I change it a little bit, but it wasn't a lot of new prep work. It was just implementing what we had already done. And my COO, Elizabeth, and I had scheduled a little mini retreat just for she and I to go to New York and get away from our normal routine and really dive into like, where are we going? What's the direction of the business? And while we were there, we both realized that this launch just was feeling so forced and it was getting closer and closer. And I was like, you know what? When I look back on the times that have really worked for us, like November of 2019, we brought in $300,000 in sales. And it was super easy. A lot of it happened while I was at Disneyland. It was like I had this idea at the end of that year to, do some cool things. And we put together a little thing. Spaghetti. We threw some spaghetti out there, strategic spaghetti, but we threw some spaghetti out there. And the same kind of thing happened, numerous times. We've brought in like $160,000 in a week, a couple of really, really cool little moments like that. And I was like, you know what? It's almost like we're putting out this challenge just to prove that we do challenges and like this is what we do. And we coach on video. So we should be doing video. But I said, I don't want to do it. And she was like, yes, thank you, about not wanting to do it. And then I was like, I don't know exactly what we're going to do, but let's just do a little pop-up workshop kind of thing and see what happens. So we made the decision to simplify and really give more time to being with my kids in July and like travel and enjoy the summer. So I went to this mastermind event in Mexico. And at this mastermind event, we were talking about, we each had like hot seats and stuff. And it's so important, as you know, Jamie, but it's so important to get out away, right? Like your retreats and things that you're doing, the same kind of thing, right? Like, I don't know if you want to speak to that at all, because I think that really had something to do with this.
I mean, I definitely think getting out, getting among other people who are not like in your inner circle all the time and getting into a space where you're totally separated frees up so much mind space that is taken up by being in your bubble all the time. That allows you to see the opportunities in a totally different way.
1,000%. So I did that, which is a regular practice for me. And it's something that I do quite often. We have 3 events a year now that we're doing in our GLAM program. We have a Disneyland day that we do. So it's like we have very intentional things to break your norm. And what we realized was there was this opportunity for people. We have a video coaching program, and then we have a higher level coaching mastermind. We realized there was this really amazing opportunity to help people get to a place where they were more of a better fit for a higher level mastermind. And maybe we could use this month in July, to do something that would bring people into a new program. Now, here's the thing. We set a goal of 50 new members, 25 is a minimum, 50 is a maximum. And I was like, I don't know if we're actually going to get to 25, but we're going to put it out there. It was a $10,000 program. And I knew that I didn't want to do 2 things. I didn't want to have a big, huge launch. And I didn't want to do sales calls for a $10,000 program. So I was like, and guess what? I have brought in $36,000 via Messenger on a Facebook Live with someone messaging me questions. Like, I have done that before. So why not just go all in on these weird, kooky things that I've done? So I also knew that I was going on a trip with my family to Santa Cruz. So what did I do? I decided, you know what? I'm going to do a video on a Thursday. By Sunday, I plan on having 25 new members in this $10,000 program. And guess what happened? We now have, so we launched it at 5K. We ended up increasing the price to 10K. We now currently have 52 members in this program, because I went a little over the 50. We brought in $331,000 in total in sales in the month of July. And I did most of those sales while sitting on the beach in Santa Cruz or driving through the beautiful trees. At one point, I didn't realize I was going to have no internet. So I was supposed to be following up with these people, but I had no internet and it was fine. And the next day, God was like, Molly, you were supposed to be on vacation. Take some time away from your phone. So I did. And it was amazing. And the whole thing worked brilliantly.
I love it.
And I slept. We don't even start till next Monday. It's not even like there's not even a hard close. Like, now I just started putting Facebook ads out, because we're kind of treating it like an airline would, where we're filling just a couple extra spots above the 50 just in case, right? But we're already at max capacity.
That's amazing. And you had your biggest month ever.
And I'm so excited. Easy. So the advice is just cancel all of your launches and go to the beach.
It's funny because I actually recently, took a complete week off. I deleted all the apps off my phone. I was on a conscious leadership retreat, and I got back from it and I had sold a retreat spot. And then the next retreat spot I sold was after I got off of a flight. Like, while I was on the flight, I got a message that they're like, send me a payment link. So there's definitely something to recognizing when you're making the choices of, I believe Gay Hendricks talks about this as conscious luck. When you're making choices from pure alignment, it brings good fortune and it brings conscious luck. But it really has to be true to the heart, full alignment of what is right for you, right for your business, and everything else.
And this is something that came up with one of our clients recently that I had to be like, okay, because there is a very fine line between doing what I did last month and doing what you did with this leadership retreat and being like, I don't ever want to build systems in my business. I just want to hire people who are going to do everything for me. And I'm just going to show up and make magic happen because I'm in alignment. That is not alignment. That is you being not an actual business owner.
There's a lot of
and the reason that you and I can do this now is because we've taken the time to put those systems in place.
Exactly. I mean, there's a lot of things that could be called, depending on the thing. It could be called spiritual bypassing. Sometimes it's that. It's not recognizing. I actually talked about this while I was mindset coaching for you, talking about business, but I absolutely think this is actually life too. There are seasons in life, there are seasons in business, and sometimes you're in a hustle season, and sometimes you're in a building season, and sometimes you're in a flow season. And you recognizing what you're in and rolling with it means you get to be in flow even when you have to hustle. You get to be in flow even when you have to build or when you have to do. And you get to be in flow when you get to take time off. Not having shame around any of those and not getting hard on yourself around any of those, but like being in the time that you're in. That is so important and is what actually brings alignment versus trying to like turn it all over and allow it all to come. That's not the same thing.
And there's one little word that I think is so important in that is that when we're in hustle, we get to be in hustle. And if you're coming at it from a place that you're needing to be in hustle, that's not the right type of hustle. That's like a panicky, forced type of hustle. If you're coming at it from a place like with a podcast, for example, if you're feeling about recording your podcast, that you're needing to like force the podcast to happen, which is how I was feeling about short form videos, it's not good. So you've got to shift some energy if you know that you actually do need to put content out there. Shift the energy so that you're getting to put the content out. You're getting to do these things. You're getting to be in that part of your business or go wait tables because I made a lot of money as a singing waiter in Ellen Stardust Diner and I could go back there if that's what I wanted to do.
Oh my gosh, that brings up a whole other anecdote that I could talk about for hours because we could talk for hours and hours and hours. So obviously at some point you're going to be coming back on because there'll be some other amazing story that we get to talk about. I am ending the show with a rapid fire. These are the things that have been the most impactful in your life. So, what book has been the most impactful book for you in getting into alignment and purpose? And I think I know the answer for this for you because it's been incredible for me and you recommended it, but go.
Oh my gosh, can I say two? I'm going to say two. Okay, I'm not going to say. So the one that first comes to mind is which we talked about, The Big Leap, right? So Gay Hendricks, The Big Leap. I've read it 7 million times. I'll probably read it again starting tonight because we've been talking about it. The other one that is so close to The Big Leap, and maybe sometimes they go back and forth, is The Little Prince by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. And I did not know that book until I was an adult. My amazing dear friend and mentor, Adam Pliska, recommended it to me when I was, I think, 20. And that barely an adult, but it has been so transformational in my life. So if you've never read The Little Prince, it is the same. It's a Trojan horse also. So go read both of those books.
Yes, I love that. Oh, what an amazing book. My dad introduced me to it when I was really little because it was life-changing for him. So grateful to him for that and for you bringing up here and so grateful for you and introducing The Big Leap to me because I remember listening to it in my kitchen while I was cooking dinner. That's what I would do. I would listen to it in my kitchen while cooking dinner. And it was like, I knew those moments were pivotal, life-changing moments for me. And they totally were. So, okay, a human, living or dead, that has made the biggest impact on you being able to step into purpose and alignment.
My grandma Bobby, which is my dad's mom. And she's like an artist and the most beautiful human. And I was able to be with her when she passed and sing Somewhere Over the Rainbow as she took her last breath. So she's been my best friend since ever. And I love her. And I have this. Look what I have. I keep this in my office. So she was a painter, and I keep this sign. This is what she would use when she would do like, it's not focusing. If you're listening on the podcast, it says Fine Paintings by Bobby Mahoney, and the camera is blurry.
That's amazing.
Fine Paintings by Bobby Mahoney. And she just, resilience, her firstborn, she had 8 children, actually. Her firstborn child died when she was 2 years old, fell out of a window. And I didn't learn that till I was older. And I remember thinking, like, how is she so amazing and powerful with everything that she's been through over like her entire life? But she was just the most creative, magical human ever. So that's her.
Okay. And the last one's a little bit of a tough one. So if you need a minute to think about it, if you were given a microphone that was going to be broadcast around the world and you could have 1 to 2 sentences of what you wanted to say to influence the world for positive change, what would it be?
Cheapers creepers. The fact that this podcast isn't live yet and I can't hear these questions ahead of time, I expand in abundance and creativity and inspire those around me to do the same. I expand in abundance, creativity, and love and inspire those around me to do the same. That's one thing. And then the other thing would be speak your kind.
Speak your kind. I love that. Molly, as always, you're one of my favorite human beings. I'm so honored to have you in my life. Thank you so, so, so much for agreeing to be one of the incredible people to help me launch this podcast. I'm so deeply grateful. And this won't be the last one, I am sure.
I'm so grateful for you too. Hooray.
So I would love to give the opportunity for, you have so many incredible ways to enter into your life. What would be some ways, and we'll definitely put the links in the show notes, that people can join you in your life, join your programs, whatever is going to be the most impactful way for somebody to come into your world.
Yes, amazing. This is funny enough, I would like to tell you that you can come hang out with us on Instagram. Perfect. Which I think is hilarious. But actually, like, even though we're pulling our focus away from Instagram, it's really what we're going to start focusing on, like more of a human thing, right? So come hang out with us there. And if you message me on Instagram with the word plan, so just the word plan, then I can sneak you a little secret message that will get you access to my top 100 top performing organic social media posts that are mainly on Facebook, those posts that I do, because that's where I tend to spend my time. But you'll get access to 100 of them and like a breakdown on why they work the way that they did. And the best part about that is that we get to like hang out a little bit, because that's all I'm going to be doing on Instagram now is just hanging out. So it's The Prepared Performer on Instagram, The Prepared Performer. And my name's Molly Mahoney, but it is The Prepared Performer.
Amazing. Yay. Well, that link will be in the show notes, and any other ways that you can connect with Molly, we'll make sure are there too, but that is where she is creating even more humanness, so you can connect with her there. She's an incredible human herself, and I can't wait for you all to have more of her in your life. Thanks everyone for listening, and we will be back soon.
I am Jamie O'Connor, and you are listening to the Inspired Focus podcast. If you haven't already, head over to Instagram and give us a follow at Inspired Focus Podcast. You can also subscribe to your favorite platform by checking us out at inspiredfocuspodcast.com. If you're interested in learning more about how you can work with me or getting information about the next retreat, which is Flourish Baja, you can get that information at inspiredfocus.co. We will be living it up in Mexico from May 21st to May 26th, and I would love for you to join me. Check that out at inspiredfocus.co. See you soon.